you guys want to move, or are you good down there?
Pardon?
Do you guys want to move up, or are you good down there?
I like my pole.
Can you hit it?
Yeah.
Right. Nope, there we go. Like to call the regular Board of Selectmen meeting for Monday, July 18th to order.
Candace Bouchard.
Jonathan Morehart.
Josh Kelly.
Todd Archelashi.
Glenn Albanese. Stephen Sedlak.
Linda Grappo.
Selectwoman Perez is excused, as well as Selectman Bork. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Agenda review. We are going to pull off under new business item A. We'll handle that at a later time. Anyone have anything else? Can I have an approval of minutes for the regular meeting on Tuesday, July 5th?
So moved.
Thank you, Jonathan. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussions or corrections? Having no discussion, all in favor? Unanimous, 5-0. Thank you. The Board of Selectmen welcomes public comments. Speakers will be limited to 3 minutes or less and may speak only once this round. Anyone wish to speak?
God bless you. Yes,
Thank you, Dave.
David LaPointe.
Can you talk into the microphone? The TV can't hear. Thank you.
And they can't see me either. They can see my back of my head. But, yeah, my name is David LaPointe, 11 Hillside Avenue, for all you people out there.
Thank you, Dave.
And the selectman and the town manager and you, Mayor, you all know me. At the last meeting, you know, there were some questions that I had, and also at the town meeting that we had at Gilbert. And, you know, I wanted to see the town manager's contract as well as previous town manager's contract. And knowing where to see those is in the town clerk's office, which I've always seen them at. But I was told I had to go up to the town manager's office to get a copy, or to see a copy. So requesting to see a copy, I proceeded to go up there, and Terry Page was very nice. She had 2 copies of the present town manager's contract as well as his old one, as well as Bob Geiger's last contract. And I proceeded to look at Mr. Geiger's contract and saw 5-6 pages of it. Subsequently, I took out my cell phone and I took a picture of the first page. At that time, Secretary Page said to me, "Mr. LaPointe, you owe me $20. I said, $20 for what? She goes, well, you took a picture, and that's considered scanning, blah, 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 under the state statute. And I said, well, I'd like to see that. She had a copy of it. She showed it to me. And it said you could charge up to $20 each agency. So I proceeded to hand her back the document, and I said, thank you very much, and I said, I'm going to see you later. She said, you owe me $20 for taking a picture of that document. I proceeded to say, well, have a nice day, and I continued to walk out the door. I proceeded down to the town clerk's office, where I asked Glenn if I took a picture of a document, am I charged $20? And he showed me a sign that's in the town clerk's office near the computer. It was actually underneath the screen of the computer, saying it's $20 to scan a document. Proceeded to look at the fees that are charged at the town clerk's office, and on the fee schedule that he had posted, and it was posted there since 2018, it had nothing to say about that $20. Now, whether or not you get a copy and you're charged 50 cents a page under state FOI laws, that's appropriate, 50 cents a page. So I can't see why our town, if indeed we are transparent and we want to have transparency for our citizens, that you can't see the document and merely take a picture of it. The actual statute doesn't say anything about cell phones, but of course technology has changed, and there has been a ruling in 2016 by the commission that cell phones can be charged up to $20 depending on each municipality. So my intent here today is to have transparency, regardless of who the town manager is, regardless of what the contract is, whether it's a union contract or a personnel contract, that the citizens can see that contract, and also, if they want, take a picture of it. What is that hurting the town? What is it hurting transparency and openness in government? Certainly the law itself, the FOI law, was put in force so that the people could have open government and open information instead of closed government and hidden information from the public. So, you know, when I talked to Kurt Moffett, he said he never heard of the $20 gig. Then I enlightened him as to what the statute said, and FOI has it posted on their website. But it's up to $20. So you, as the governing body, the selectmen, should actually set the rate like you do electrical or roofing fees. And the people pay those fees if they're getting an upgrade in their home. And I think it would be appropriate. There's nothing in the, bylaws or the ordinances in the town setting that rate. So my question was, who set the rate? And everybody just kept saying, well, that's what it is. That's what we see here, and it's in state statute. Well, it says up to $20. So if it's 50 cents to have you copy a page, why should it be $20 for me to take a picture? By the way, the town manager's office sent me a bill for $20 saying that I owed this and had 30 days to pay it, or else it'll be subject to, interest and everything else, liens that could be filed. So on advice of counsel at FOI, they said it would be better to pay it and bring it then to the governing body, which you good people are. And I hope that you make it a point that anybody else besides LaPointe can still get information at a reasonable fee. We all should agree on that, no matter what political party we are or what political opinions we have. So thank you.
Thank you, David. John, anything? All right. Moving on to the town manager's report.
Very well, thank you. So first and foremost, regarding the cat hoarding situation, it continues, right? So as of the morning of Friday, July 15th, when I wrote this, I have not been updated about whether any cats were picked up today. But as of the last time that I received an update, we had 26 cats still in our possession up at Bachelor School, 3 of them being kittens, 23 being adult cats. Of the 23 adult cats, 13 of them have been assigned to rescues or shelters, and they are going to be taken, I've been told, by the end of this week, meaning that we could have as few as in the single digits of cats left in our care beyond that. We have volunteers who are working very diligently. I mean, they've already placed over 150 cats into the care of different rescues and shelters. As you can imagine, the shelters and rescues were already full when this started, so adding 150 cats to them, and certainly not that many adoptions in as much time, they continue to be inundated with cats, and things are more slow moving now than they were before. But we are much closer to seeing the end of, or seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, let's say, than we were before. So we have continued to receive a lot of support from the public. That's come in the form of, obviously a lot of folks have sent in their thoughts and have been posting their thoughts online, but also in monetary donations. And the town at this point has received over $20,000 in donations to help support these animals. So that's going to obviously go to cover some of the costs that the town has seen over the past several weeks. We are approaching week 4 with these cats, the end of week 4, I should say. And any money that's left over at the end, a portion of it will remain with the town to help address similar situations that may arise in the town's future, so that we're not starting from scratch. And the remaining portion will be divided proportionately amongst the several rescues that have helped us to make sure that the money's following these cats and making sure that they're getting the proper care, spaying, neutering, shots, and the like, as well as the 2 dogs and the ferret that have been rescued at this point. Scrolling down my list here, and then of course I'll turn it over for any questions that individuals have. Regarding the bachelor school, we have completed a draft RFP, which I'll discuss with the Board of Selectmen at a later date, but it's my hope to have that posted publicly for public consumption, and hopefully with public proposals coming in by the end of this week. With the Communities Challenge Grant, I do want to make sure that all the selectmen are aware. This week, we have finally heard from, or I should say last week, we finally heard from the Communities Challenge Grant administrative team, and they've reached out to set up a time to meet this week. In the next couple of days, we'll sit down with their attorney, make sure that any legal questions we have about how to use these funds, how to appropriately report, et cetera, is going to occur. So that's all good news. And we'll make sure that everybody's on the same page before we spend $1 of that money. Regarding economic development, we have more businesses coming in every week looking to open up new ventures here in Winchester or expand or relocate, in some cases, their existing ventures. We do still have $50,000, this is more, I suppose, to the public, we do still have $50,000 in our business startup program that's unawarded. If you're someone who's interested in starting a new business or relocating or expanding your business here to Winchester, we have opportunities to help you with that. So that's very positive. On personnel, we are in the middle of interviewing building official candidates. I have a good feeling about this batch, and I'll certainly keep the Board of Selectmen posted as we proceed. And we're actively seeking out a town planner, a tax collector, and since I wrote this report, we're now also, posted publicly, we have our assistant assessor position. So if you know anybody who's interested or who has a background in one of these positions or one of these areas of study, for lack of a better way to put it, please tell them to apply. Tell them to reach out. And regarding Sustainable CT, this is something I haven't been able to give a report about in a long time, but with the help of an intern that's paid for by Sustainable CT and that serves out of the Northwest Hills Council of Governments office, we've been able to take several actions and record those for points under the Sustainable CT certification program. So at our next meeting, it's my hope that I'll have a report of what actions have been documented under that program so that you can track our progress towards certification. As you may recall, around August of 2021, we engaged with Sustainable CT, which is a 501c3 nonprofit, signed up for their services, which are free of charge to us, but allow us to have access to a roadmap forward for sustainable development in a very practical, pragmatic manner. It gives all of the registered 501c3s and other civic groups that exist in town, as well as the municipality, access to matching fund grants, relatively small matching fund grants, but we do have that opportunity. And it also gives us access to data sharing with other municipalities and information sharing on a level that's unprecedented in Connecticut, the Connecticut municipal sphere. Those are all of the items that I had to report to you here in this. I would be happy to take any questions on that. But before we go in that direction, I'll address the public comment that was just given to us about the Freedom of Information Act. First and foremost, I do feel it's important to note that, at least my understanding, and I don't know if this is Glenn's understanding, but with the $20 fee, when you take a picture of any document, it does include the entirety of the document and other documents that you are looking at in that session. We're not talking about $20 a page. We're not talking about somebody paying possibly hundreds of dollars to look at a single document. And the thing I think it's important for the Board of Selectmen to note as you consider this, because it's a legitimate request and it's something to be considered, is that it does take an inordinate amount of staff time on a weekly basis to respond to all the FOI requests that we receive. We're inundated on a daily basis with these different requests. Some of them range from finding a single document that might exist, like a contract, relatively easy, but some of them are extremely complicated and may involve going through thousands of emails. It may involve going through thousands of documents from decades ago that we may have on record, or at least pages of those documents. It can be very time-consuming, and the purpose of having any fees associated, whether it be 50 cents for a page that's scanned and photocopied or printed, to $20 to take as many pictures of those documents as you'd like, is to help compensate for some of the staff time that we lose out on because of all of these requests coming in. Now, I am a proponent of good government. I'm a proponent of transparent government, and I believe that there is something to be said for making sure that the fees are reasonable for our residents. But I do think there's also something to be said for ensuring that the individuals who are placing the greatest burden on the town's staff time that's being paid for by the taxpayers is not paid for solely by the taxpayers. It's at least supplemented to some extent by the individuals who are requesting those documents and in turn paying the fees. So it's a system of fairness, and I would be happy to collect any data, information about fees, how they're implemented in other towns if the Board of Selectmen should so choose. But in any case, I wanted to give a little look into why things are the way that they are and why my understanding is that this fee system has been in place since before I arrived. Are there any questions about my report or otherwise?
I would comment on what you've just said. I don't think it's a matter of transparency that we're talking about here. It's a matter of discussion, negotiating the fees. I think your job, Josh, is to make sure that all of the employees know what the fee schedule is and are enforcing it evenly and equally across, you know, as every customer comes in. Thought occurred to me while I was listening to the discussion was that, you know, if it's 50 cents a page for a 5-page contract, that's $2.50. It's a better deal than $20. At some point, you know, consider things like that, meeting people halfway. But if you look at what is done in each department that, you know, collects fees or deals with the public this way, to make sure there's equity in how it's implemented.
Absolutely.
Could we get an update on Walker Field?
Yes, an update on Walker Field. So I had sent some information out to the board, but lights fell at Walker Field, right? So in order to ensure everybody's safety, it was a decision made, you know, initially by the rec board and supported by myself and the director of public works, that those lights need to come down. So that is the plan at this time. You probably saw caution tape that went around those lights to make sure, and we put some public noticing out to make sure that people weren't at least sitting underneath them if they were in that general area. There's been no issue with any of that, but work is ongoing to make sure that those lights are removed in a safe manner. And we are already looking into grant opportunities to have new, more secured, hopefully steel-posted lights go in that are also LED and more cost-effective for the town to run.
Has the rec department ever, or who creates capital project plans for the rec department or public works?
No, the rec board has its own projected capital plan.
Who does the
and
inspection on equipment like that?
inspection on the lights, that's actually a really great question.
I'll tell you, in 2015, that our rec director came to propose a capital improvement plan on the lights. So that's from 2015 to now. Those lights were, so I'm surprised that since that time, that hasn't, I don't know if it hasn't been brought forward. There was an obviously at that time we had no money, and there was an exorbitant amount of money. And I suggested that they come up with a plan to lease them.
Yep.
And they did. She got a quote for one, I think the life of the lights that were gonna be replaced was maybe 15 years. And 10 years of it would have been maintained by that light company, and then the other 5 years, you know, so it was a reasonable idea to lease them, but unfortunately, we had not enough money even to do that at the time. But that's very scary.
I agree, and I'm glad that we're
But
now tending to it, but you're right, it's too bad that it wasn't brought
But
up.
they
before
have
now.
they have a life cycle.
Yep.
So there needs to be a maintenance plan of inspection, you know, so this doesn't happen going forward,
Agreed.
but I don't know. And that was only just having the lights work, not falling. You know, it was like that.
I saw last weekend they were looking for volunteers for the cats.
Yep.
We gonna put that on social media?
We can do
If
that.
we're still looking at it for the weekends?
Yep, and so we will at least need volunteers through Friday at a minimum. We know that for fact. So it is out on social media. The town itself hasn't posted it, but I can make sure that happens.
Any other questions from the board?
And if I know what they were looking for, people who had actually handled them before that were familiar with the process.
We're hopeful that those individuals who are experienced will come out. I know that a lot of folks after almost 4 weeks are pretty fried, for lack of a better way to put it. So we are also accepting, we're trying to pair people who have worked together with new folks, but there are few enough cats. It's pretty manageable at this point to teach someone what needs to be done. We'll take anyone.
So do you have an end date as to when they will be gone so that the facility can be cleaned?
It's my hope that as early as this weekend, they might all be gone. That really depends on the success of the volunteers that we have who are continuing to call shelters and how quickly people are adopting from the shelters in place. But just as an example, I'm learning a lot about the shelter system in Connecticut. Most shelters in the state at least have a minimum of either 3 or 4 week containment quarantine for animals, especially that are coming out of a situation like this, just to make sure that they're all tested, they're disease-free for a variety of reasons. We don't want them to go into a home, they don't want them to go into a home where it's going to be unsafe for any person, other animal, et cetera. So we're just now reaching the end of most of the animals that have already left us, their quarantine period. So these animals haven't even really had the opportunity to be adopted from these shelters. So we haven't seen a lot of animals move. There aren't a lot of free spaces around the state. And I've been told over and over again, it's kitten season. So there are a lot of small kittens that were born around the state that have ended up in shelters, taking up space that are being adopted out right now, but not really creating any new kennel space for our cats to move into. So my hopeful guess is as early as this weekend. My more likely scenario is by the following weekend.
Moving on to the finance director's report. Anne Marie.
Oh, and Anne Marie, before Anne Marie speaks, does anybody not have a copy now of the grants? Would you mind passing that down to Steve? Everybody else have a copy of the grants report?
I couldn't download it or something, I printed what you printed.
Okay. I do have other copies if anyone needs it. With dates included.
Thank you for the dates.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We got it done.
Thanks.
Sorry, Anne Marie.
No, that's okay. I'm not sure if I have a copy of that, but I can get one eventually. Okay. Good evening. So we are looking at right now, full fiscal year, June 30th, 2022. And what I'm giving you right now is very preliminary results. So we are 100% into the year, and we have started into the new fiscal year, fiscal 23. However, we do have a significant amount of, I would call it runoff invoices. So what you see for expenditure numbers and what you are being presented here are not final numbers. We do still have a significant amount of invoices to be paid, as they will continue to trickle in, upwards of into September for the end of the year, for the fiscal year 2022. So property tax revenue, current year to date, 25.104 million, which is 102.72% of budgeted, in comparison to the prior year of 24.429, which was 101% of budget last year. We did have a significant amount of past due collections, $442,000, which is 147% of budget, compared to $218,000 for the same period last year, which was only 67%. So that is contributing to the over budget amount. Total revenues for the year, $35.463 million at 101.64% of budget, compared to $34.68 million, which is 101.56%. Again, we were budgeted at just about $743,000 higher of revenue than we were in fiscal 21. And a lot of the surplus in the revenue side, in addition to the property tax, is coming on the town service side in terms of the town clerk's revenue, and we had significant amount of the police permits coming in, building department also, all running above budget. Expenditure totals for the year, again, very preliminary, $33.862 million at 97.05%, compared to $34.68 million at 101.56%. Our municipal aid that we received in June, we received our final payment for Pequot Pilot of $16,491, and our municipal grant of $306,204. Cash flow at the end of June is $11.9 million. $7.8 million of that was invested, 5.6 in Northwest Community Bank, and 2.2 million in STIF. Our June capital expenditures, we had some payments this month. A little over $18,000 were paid for the QDS tax software conversion, which went into effect as of July 1st. We converted over a little over $7,000 on Case Avenue, $5,400 Pratt Street culvert and sidewalk, $40,000 for annual road maintenance, $29,000 for the Public Works Director pickup truck, and a little over $8,000 for the Highland Lake storm drains. I did speak with the Public Works Director, and I know, Josh, there was a request last month of an update on the ongoing road maintenance and what work was being done. And I did make the Public Works Director aware of that the Board of Selectmen is looking for that update. So he will work on that going forward. Hinsdale reimbursement, we put in a reimbursement request number 5 with the Board of Education for $513,000. And we did receive payment for request number 4, which the request was for $1.4 million. We did receive a little over $1.8 million, and the Board of Education has reached out to DAS to get a reconciliation of the amounts that were paid in comparison to what was put in for the request. So we're waiting on, they may have released some of the retainage, but we don't have that calculation because it didn't match up. So we are waiting for them to provide a reconciliation back to the town. That's all I have. Did anyone have any questions?
I have 2 questions. On page 1 of the budget report, is that a typo from 7/1/2018?
No, that's on the capitals. on that page. So we run that report from July 1 of 2018 until current. So that gives you an idea on, particularly for capitals, a lot of the capitals are multi-year projects. So just looking at 1 year doesn't really give you the full picture of where those projects may be.
Okay, and then if the town collected $20,000 in donations, where would that be reflected?
Those will be recorded. We have a grant fund. It's Fund 15. So those do not go into the general fund because those are donation types, and those will be carried forward, any of the money, so that won't be expended in the current year. Anything that is, again, multi-year that's not capital, that's grants and donations, goes into a separate fund so that you don't lose the ability to spend that money in more than 1 year. So it's not really revenue, it's not general fund revenue to the town.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask you how the transfer to the new tax system worked?
So I do want to just thank the residents for their patience. I know that we have had some glitches when we've had customers at the counter, and our tax collector before she left and our assistant tax collector and the additional staff that we have in there have been working very diligently to assist any customers and to work with QDS if we do run into a little hiccup. But I believe it's been going very well. There are a significant amount of emails going back and forth with QDS and with support as we gear up for the water and sewer billings that are going to go out. So they are working simultaneously on taking the new tax payments, dealing with any issues that come up with the payments on the tax side, and then they're getting ready for the water and sewer. So they are working to get that all in order, get the bills out, looking at the bills, and making sure that the system is working as it should. As suspected with any conversion, you do run into some hiccups. You do run into some issues that you don't quite understand. And Ashley has been very good and has worked. QDS has the ability to remote into our system and to assist our staff in fixing anything or answering any questions that they may have.
Did we lose any data? Because I know one of my cars didn't make it to the list.
That I do not know. And they have... We've definitely worked, and we have extended for a short period of time with GEMS on the tax software. We did not want to cut them off as of July 1st. We wanted to make sure we had an overlap time, so we are still contracted with GEMS to make sure that the legacy data does come over correctly.
Have the auditors already begun collecting information?
They will be out here this week. So they'll be out, I believe, on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. They'll be out. We have begun. Cindy has sent over some data. Kim, my payroll clerk, has sent over data. I know the tax department has accumulated information that they have requested. So yes, they will. They are beginning their work for the year.
I know one of the issues with the paying online, if people just searched for the last name, their tax bills wouldn't come up. They had to make sure that they put a space and then their first initial.
QDS is very quirky, I can tell you that, because we work with it in my hometown, and I have a problem sometimes looking up my own taxes. It is very quirky in terms of making sure you look up the right information. Sometimes even your address, if it's, say North Main Street, it might be in the system as N Main Street. So you do have to be aware. And if you do have an issue with looking up your own taxes, you can certainly reach out to the tax department. If they do not answer the phone at this point in time, please leave a message. They will get back to you. They are very busy. And obviously with the conversion, it is taking a little more of their time. But and with Hillary's departure. So we do have the office staffed, but sometimes you may need to be a little bit patient, and we'll have to call you back.
But it does say on the front to put your initial. Just have to read it.
Any other questions for Anne Marie?
Yeah. Anne Marie, thank you. I'm sorry, this Thursday, I would have asked some of these
Oh,
questions.
I'm glad you said that. So I did ask Terry to send a reminder to the Board of Selectmen members for the Finance Subcommittee meeting, and to please RSVP, whether you'll be there or not, so that I don't spend my time preparing and making copies for no one to be in attendance. I would just appreciate that.
It was in the middle of the afternoon.
I understand. Everybody forgets. Cindy does work. I do work for it, and obviously it's work that I have to get done. But I just don't. I'd rather not make and kill a few trees if I don't have to.
Right, and as I said, I would have asked these questions then. One simple question and then some detailed questions. How do you get over 100% in tax collection? Does somebody pay more than they do?
No. So you are looking at 100%, more than 100% of your budgeted revenue, not your tax levy. 100% of your budgeted. So you are not budgeting at 100%. You're budgeting a certain collection percentage. You're reducing that. So you may get over what you've budgeted. It's not in comparison to what you've actually levied.
Thank you for explaining that. I appreciate that. Okay, I have a question. Let's start with page 13. And I just want to clarify this so that when we have further discussions about things like recreation, on the line 0812, recreation total, it appears to me that the way you have it listed here is like $54,000 in surplus in that. Am I reading that correctly? The way over unexpended balance in that particular account, 54,836.57.
Correct.
So that is unexpended balance.
Correct.
And that's surplus in that.
That's surplus in those. So anywhere you see in that column, the unexpended balance, that takes your year-to-date expenditures
Right.
plus your encumbrances. So any open purchase orders at the end of the year, and compares that to what you've budgeted. And obviously, if that's a positive number, then yes,
So speaking about
that's
lights,
potential surplus. Potential. Yes.
And speaking about lights, then there would be 54,000 in the recreation account if we wanted to do that.
Well, what you would have to do, and you'll see that in a couple of the transfer requests that are being made tonight, is to move that money into capitals, to reserve that money to be spent in a future year.
Fair enough.
Yes.
Let's go to the next page, page 14, on the 0813 Senior Citizens Family Services. It looks like there's a $30,000 way over to the right, $30,000 surplus, $30,970.32. Am I correct on that?
Oh, actually, you know what? Let's go back to that. That unexpended column, I'm going to correct myself. You want to look at the unencumbered balance. So the unencumbered is taking into consideration what's still encumbered. So you'd be looking at just about a $24,000
All right. And
surplus.
so if we went back to the recreation, it's instead of 54, it's 46.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So-
Now, that could go higher as we close purchase orders. If there are purchase orders that are not needed as of June 30th, which my staff is looking at right now, they do a full review of the purchase orders that are still open to make sure we're going to use those purchase orders, and if we do not need those, we can close out the remainder. Because what happens is sometimes you spend and you have a purchase order that's for more than what comes in, and there might be a remaining balance, and at the end of the year, we try to close out as many purchase orders as we can.
I remember doing that with the Soldiers Monument Commission, so thank you very much for that clarification. And the last item I want to talk about, town support for education. That looks like there's an $8,142.67 unspent in that account.
And again, I would say these numbers are very preliminary. The Board of Education may have additional expenditures that relate to fiscal year '22 that have not hit that line item yet. We have not paid those invoices, so I'm not sure whether that amount will remain in there for the end of the year.
Fair enough. So when those invoices do come in, though, and rather than purchasing for the next fiscal year, '23, these are going to be deducted from the '22 budget account.
So we look at this time of year, we look at every invoice to determine what year it relates to. When was the service provided? When were the goods ordered? When were the goods received? To determine whether it belongs in fiscal year 2022 or fiscal year 2023. That is one of the things that the auditors will test for. They do a test for unrecorded liabilities, and they will look to see if there's things that you paid in 23 that belong in 22, and vice versa, that you paid and potentially are a 2023 goods or services.
When do you
Okay, I wanted to
anticipate
clarify on
closing the
those
books?
two issues and those accounts. Thank you for that.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
I'm sorry.
When do you anticipate closing the books?
Well, the books are technically open until our audit is finalized. Up until the time where we can, realistically, there are late journal entries that may be found as we do the audit. So the fiscal year is still open until the audit is completed because there may be adjusting entries at the end. My thought is, at what point do we cut that off? You kind of around the September 1st or so is really the cutoff when we try to look and see if, hopefully, we will have all of our
Yeah, I
invoices.
think typically it's the end of August.
Yeah,
or
yeah.
past.
Yeah, I suppose that's the reason why we can't say we have a surplus of 29,000 in that.
No, because we still even our last payroll for June was on July 8th. So just look at payroll because most of it will be payroll for the previous 2 weeks. So that has to be recorded at the end of that has to be recorded into June and not into July for the majority of it, except for July 1st, which was Friday.
It's just the simplification. If you look at those figures and you say, oh, there's a surplus.
Yeah, and you also, I mean, we still haven't paid. We still have EverSource from June, so all of our EverSource bills won't get paid until July for June services. So you do have a lot of invoices that will trickle in after the end of the year.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a question about social services? We are at 122%. How do we spend over 100%?
What department are you looking
Oh,
at?
I'm sorry. It's on page 12, section 0510. So we're at 122% there.
Oh, yes, because that line item is for Katie's department, and that was not Katie Vale's department, and a portion of her salary is covered by a grant, but the fringe benefits related to that were not budgeted for. So that's why that department is over budget. Because you'll see it's mostly in the fringe line items that were in deficit.
Thank you.
Questions?
Thank you. Moving on to correspondence, does anyone have anything?
I just want to make sure that everybody knows, I did pass out today reports from the Economic Development Director. Everybody should also have a report from the Fire Marshal and from the Chief of Police, as well as the grants, but we already covered that.
So I don't understand the chief of police's report because there were incidents in there that are not captured.
I'm sorry?
Hoarding case happened in June.
That's true, it was at the end of June. I'm
June
not
21st?
sure, yes. And it remains ongoing, and it's also an ongoing investigation, so it may be that he's recording it when the investigation closes. I'd have to ask him for more information.
And also, what about the break-in of the two homes on?
Right.
Yeah, I don't know if that was July, though. That may have been July.
Well, that was in
May
there.
have been July, technically.
There was a mark of home invasion in the report.
There was a what?
There was something about home invasion in the report.
It was, but not the hoarding, not the animal hoarding. Got it.
Yeah, it's,
Oh, good, thank you for that.
Boards and commissions?
Thank you, Todd. This evening, we are going to reappoint Bill Hester, so I'm going to move that we reappoint William Hester as a member of the Water and Sewer Commission, term to expire in June of 2025.
I will second.
Thank you, Jonathan. Any discussion? All in favor? 6-0.
And I'd like to have us acknowledge with thanks the service of Kurt Timoney as a member of the board of the Inland Water and Water, IWWC.
Inland wetlands, yeah.
You got it, Steve.
There was a note in the package about his stepping off, and the term, if we fill his term soon, the term would expire in April of 2023. So we're looking for an additional member of inland watercourses and wetlands.
There are alternates in that group, aren't they? Alternates in the
Believe
inland
that's the case.
wetland?
Yes, there are.
So an inland wetland alternate could move up.
It's possible.
But we still need an inland wetlands alternate.
I can agree.
We would still need someone else to volunteer is what he's basically
But
saying.
it wouldn't be a permanent position, it'd be an alternate member.
Whatever their bylaws say, right, exactly.
Yeah, but the term would still expire in April of 2023 for the new person.
As an alternate, if they get it
Yes.
as an alternate.
Yes. That would be my report, Todd.
Thank you, Steve. Moving on to unfinished business, do we have anything? All right, new business. Item B, consider and possibly act on the approval of the resolution to authorize the town's application for money to support the Sue Grossman Greenway development to the state's Community Investment Fund.
So, thank you, Todd. There is one last item that I'm passing out to all of you now, which is just a little bit of background information about the Community Investment Fund 2030. This is a fund that's been developed by the state of Connecticut, which allows municipalities, just like Winchester, to, and specifically Winchester, as well as a few other towns, to apply for project funding that falls under $175 million that's being passed out obviously in a responsible manner, and through an application process by the state of Connecticut on an annual basis. There are going to be, this is brand new, the first round of applications is due next week, and in order to apply for any amount of money of that $175 million that is made available to our municipality, we do have to come together and have the Board of Selectmen approve a resolution indicating which project or projects for possible future rounds would be funded, and that the Board of Selectmen approves moving forward as an application. This is a grant, to my knowledge, and Marie, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe that there's any match requirement with the Community Investment Fund, at least that I'm aware of. Certainly, if I become aware of any other match requirement, I will come back to you with that fact. And the purpose of these projects, the purpose of this money going towards projects in alliance districts and other such municipalities, as you'll see in the packet, it's really to drive home equity. They're trying to make sure that communities that are disadvantaged economically or otherwise have an opportunity to invest in themselves and make sure that they are providing the same services, the same products, whatever it might be, to all of their residents on an equitable basis. So we have an opportunity in front of us, and we've already requested through some other grants money for the Sue Grossman Greenway. And what I propose to you tonight is, because we already have that information compiled, more or less ready for a grant application, and because this opportunity is available to us, and because the Sue Grossman Greenway represents an opportunity for the people of the town, regardless of their background, regardless of their economic status, or any other biographical factor, it gives them the opportunity to have a multi-use trailer in their backyard for purposes of recreation, fitness, accessibility, and the like. So it's my hope that you will all consider approving the resolution that was included in your packet. I apologize, I don't have a specific motion ready for you, but a simple motion to approve the resolution related to the Sue Grossman Greenway grant application as presented would suffice. And a second. The request would be for $2 million from this fund for, again, the purposes of extending the Sue Grossman Greenway from where this current segment that's being constructed right now will end up at the Department of Motor Vehicles all the way down to Willow Street, as we've been trying to get done for the last, well, at least well over a year that I've been here. And
Look at the grant date. from 2015,
Yeah, there you go.
16.
So this is my proposal right now. We have an opportunity to make other proposals and to make other applications at future dates. Given how close this deadline is, I believe that this is an area where we have a great opportunity to possibly receive this funding from the state. And it's also an application that the town staff with relatively little time can turn around and submit. So I recommend that the resolution that is here in front of you be adopted as presented.
But how can we do that if we don't know if there's no other finance required by the town?
Well, and from everything that I've read, there's no statement by the state that there's a matching
so-
fund. I am assuming, and I will be honest, I am assuming that that means that there is no matching fund required. If I'm wrong, obviously, I would tell you that, and you wouldn't,
Well,
by
contingent
adopting
on it,
this.
right.
By adopting this, you are not accepting the requirements associated with the grant. You're simply authorizing the application to proceed. So you will have an opportunity at a later date to accept or reject this grant if it's awarded, depending on what strings they attach to it.
I'll make that motion, Todd.
Thank you, Steve. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Candace. Any further discussion on this?
Josh, a couple questions.
Yep.
Certainly, the $2 million for this project, I understand it's well worth it, and we'd all like to see it finished. And you mentioned that we could apply for others. Sometimes when you have a grant like this and you make one application, they won't take another one in a future date. I'm thinking about other projects that may be as fulfilling, but less costly. So, two questions. One, can this project be split to, say, 1.75 and another 25 million go to another project? Or could it be said that if we do this one, we probably, and get awarded it, we probably can't get another one in the same Section 32, 285A?
Just to clarify my understanding of everything that I've read about this program, I have not read anything that would preclude us from applying for future rounds of funding underneath this umbrella of the fund. Actually, even today I received 2 emails from the state inviting us to apply for the second round of Communities Challenge grant, and we all know that Winchester was the smallest town to receive an award, and not even the smallest award at that. So the state is, I think, trying to make an effort to make sure that they are not exclusionary. I do agree with you that it becomes less likely for us to receive an additional grant, at least until these grant funds are expended. And from my perspective, I think that this is a project that we've worked for so long that is very costly to tend to ourselves. It's not reasonable to break up a paving project like this into, for example, 20 small segments and have $100,000 a year go towards it. It would never get done that way, and it's going to cost us a lot more through the nose. If we did decide to do 1.7 million, just as an example, instead of the 2.0 and have $300,000 go to some other project, first, I would hate to not see this project go forward now just because we're trying to scratch our heads and think of another $300,000 project to put forward.
I can think of a couple.
I can think of a couple, but in terms of getting this together by July 25th for an application to be put in, I think we'd be hard-pressed, just to be honest. And the other piece of that is, realistically, it's going to be at least $1.9 million. The $2 million adds a little contingency to this project. But if we lower it to 1.7, I would hate to get this close to Willow Street and not get there.
I just don't want this money to go to, like did the first grant, just to all engineering. We've already had the engineering work done on this. So this must be almost shovel-ready to go if we put this together.
Not quite.
Not
Right?
quite.
Didn't
Not
we
quite,
do
but this does include engineering costs.
Shovel-ready to where we're going right now.
I mean, there was enough engineering work done from beyond?
No,
No.
because you still have to deal with the wetlands.
Yeah.
And we also still have to get obtain property approval to go through.
Yep. And now on the property side of things, the good news is that we've really done a lot of the hard legwork of getting in touch with the right people at Eversource, having the conversations. They're now aware, and Eversource is the holder of most of the property that we need to obtain at this point, or at least obtain an easement to. So the ball's rolling, so to speak. They know what other properties we need to gain easements to, and it would be relatively easy. We only started that process of obtaining those easements back
The key is
last,
we have
the
an
end of last summer.
engineering firm that moves. We didn't before.
Oh, I know, but we spent $2 million in engineering for that 1/2 mile.
No, we didn't.
It was not that much.
No, we didn't.
To be fair. To be fair, it was not nearly that much.
No.
We
No
received
idea.
how much from the grant? About $2 million?
No, it was split with Torrington, okay?
Right.
You know, it's not that, and maybe 75,000, but the delay is what's killing us.
But the vast majority of those funds, about 1.3 million right now, is going into the construction. So that's what's moving us forward to up to the Department of Motor Vehicles right now.
They're still fine tuning, but it is, you know, light years ahead, you know, from what it was.
Well, let me ask one other question. Since this, you just heard, well, we're just getting information about this. Is this something we would have found out, or is this something, I mean, that been actually sent to us? Or is this the good work that Allison has been doing on some of the
This
grant?
is Alliance. This targets Alliance towns. Alliance towns.
Yes, I know, but did
This
it,
is not generated from anyone within Winstead. This is generated from the governor, as he said, to make sure that we're addressing the needs in the poorest towns, that we get the same equity that other towns do.
how long can we remain an Alliance town and get stuff like this?
That's a good question, and we're going to find out probably in the near future. And there are pros and cons with that, right? Obviously, there's more money that comes to us because we're an alliance town. But on the other hand, if we're not an alliance town, that means we're doing something right, and we're well on that track. In terms of who found the grant, this is something that the governor's office has been pushing out to alliance towns. But that being said, Allison has been doing a stellar job and has been working right alongside, a small grants team within the town staff to make sure that we know which projects would be best suited for each pot of money. And this is there was a lengthy conversation with that group about what would be best to fall under this particular grant application. So certainly there are more grants to come. I think we have another maybe 4 slated in the near future that we hope to apply for, including some steep money going towards roads here in town and the like, and possibly even a Second Communities Challenge grant application. Who knows? But I think that it would be worthwhile for us to get our foot in the door with this application now, with the understanding that, and the very likely case that we won't receive it. We'll receive feedback at least. We'll have a better understanding of the process. We'll have a chance to still receive the money, but we'll be all the more prepared when the second round of applications for this opens up in the fall.
What other project would impact economic development in this town as much as this trail would?
Well, perhaps the trail along the river, doing more work there, the just downtown stuff. I'd look for anything at the Soldiers Monument, just those
That's
would
gonna help
impact.
economic development.
Well, I don't know, does walking on a trail economic development? It's all how you train it to be. I understand what you're saying, Candace, but, I'd like to see some question. I'm just questioning whether it is the appropriateness to put it all there or someplace else too.
Well,
Understood.
he's asking just for an amount. It's not limited by $2 million, right?
No, actually, this is the only grant I've found that the state's put out, at least in the last couple of years, where there has been a minimum and no maximum. We can request, I believe it's a minimum of $250,000 that you have to request. And as long as you're above that, they'll consider
Well, it
any
says
request.
the amount is not to exceed. It's not a minimum.
Well, that's this
No, right.
this resolution. But in terms of the requirements of the program, we can keep adding on to this. There's no cap on how much we can request.
All right.
That's why it's important to have shovel-ready projects so that we can take advantage of.
As close as possible,
Right,
right?
right.
I will say, just on the subject of Main Street, there is a really exciting US DOT grant. I think I've mentioned it, at least by email, to a couple of you before. But it's related to reconnecting communities. So the whole focus of it, you've probably heard a lot about some more major cities where, for example, they put train tracks through it. You hear about the other side of the tracks. And oftentimes when you lay, whether it's a road, whether it's train tracks or something else, if you divide an area geographically with a mode of transportation, you have differing types of development that will occur on each side of it. Winstead actually qualifies beautifully for this particular grant because of Route 44. We have one side of Main Street, whether it's developed this way for one reason or another, or it's really impacted by the flood. We have one side of Main Street that's much more economically vibrant and developed than the other side. And this grant will give us the opportunity to get, we're going to apply for $400,000 in planning dollars to finally look at nose-in parking and reduce the width of, hopefully, reduce the width of the lanes in our two passing lanes that will be developed to try and slow traffic on Main Street and have parking be on the business side so that we're encouraging as much economic activity as possible on Main Street. So that is a two-part grant. You have to apply for both parts individually. The first part is planning, and we're going to request $400,000 for engineering and a review of that. The second part is implementation, and it's, I believe, up to $2 million to implement whatever the plan is that was developed under Phase 1. So we have opportunities for economic development, and this is one part of it, one part of a holistic plan.
All right, all in favor of supporting the resolution?
Thank you.
Unanimous? 6-0, not unanimous, because Kennedy isn't here. Item C, proposed line item transfer, 22-40.
Yep. And Anne Marie, please, for all of these fund transfers as we go through, if there's any other information that you can help provide or that you have, feel free to come on up and join in. So it was more than a year ago at this point, about a year and a half ago, right before I started working here, there was a leak in the police department. I don't know if any of you recall that. I know there's always a leak. Okay, there was a burst. Let's put it that way. It was more significant. Pipes in the ceiling disrupted a large area downstairs. So when I came on board, we got it cleaned up. Everything was repaired, et cetera, really before I started. But there's still a wide area downstairs in the police department that has remained in a level of disrepair as a result of that particular water event. So in order to correct it, I believe all the plumbing's corrected at this point. It should not be an issue again. But there are items around the police department that are in need of renovation. So it would include new flooring and carpeting, patching walls, moving electrical outlets to more safe locations in the event something like that should happen again, adding a few new electrical outlets, painting those walls, and so forth. So this is a $20,000 transfer that we're proposing to get that work done.
Do we have a motion?
I move that the Board of Selectmen approve the line item transfer of $20,000 from Police Department Labor Skilled and Professional 210-192-0000 to Police Department dash $20,500 Police Station Refurbishments 179-210-100-2301.
Thank you, Jonathan. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Steve. Any further discussion on this transfer?
Is this something that was proposed in the capital budget, since it's $20,000?
This is something that was proposed at one point during capital discussions and is not currently funded.
Right. So it was
Right.
proposed as a capital, but was rejected, so now this is the opportunity.
This is the opportunity to do it with some leftover funding, that's right.
What is labor skilled and professional for a police department?
That's on this page.
What is, no, I get
It's
that,
what she's
but
asking us right there.
Oh, that's simply our labor line, so that's personnel costs. Right. So we've had a number of vacancies over the past
Okay,
year.
okay.
Everybody knows we've been hiring a number of police officers,
Right.
and that's where we have some overages.
I was like thinking of contracting out, landscaping.
Yeah, no.
No, got it, thank you.
It's
Could I just-
$20,000, not correct, not 20,500.
Yes, and I
Okay.
spoke with Terry about that
Okay.
mistake prior to the meeting. She said if it came up and someone didn't read the motion, as
20,000.
you pointed out, Linda, it's 20,000.
Okay.
All in favor? 6-0. Motion passes. Item 22-41.
So this is a interdepartmental transfer request for $7,500 is the request. It would go from Public Works Contracted Services to capital projects in the Senior Center department. And the purpose of this, right now, for anybody who's been to the Senior Center, the air conditioner compressor is broken. It's obviously, we're in the middle of summer. It's not an ideal time to have the air conditioning unit on the fritz, and it's also supposed to be a cooling shelter for us. It will not be taking the form of a cooling shelter for us this week when we're going to see some highs because the air conditioning's down. So for a number of reasons, there's some work here at the Senior Center that needs to get done. As you'll see on the Minutemen Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling estimate that we received, there is a line for tax. Please know, we never pay taxes. The town is a tax-exempt entity. Anytime that we see that, there are a lot of contractors that don't really have an understanding of municipal governments or just forget, whatever the case is. But we always correct those before any bills are paid, and it's no skin off their back, of course, because it's just taxes. So I do want to make that clear, but we are still, I had a discussion with Anne Marie, despite any numbers that you might be seeing on that page, we are requesting that the transfer be $7,500, remain at that level because this is a very old system. This is a system, my understanding is over 30 years old. We don't know what we're going to really find when we start opening that up. It's contingency. It's contingency. It's relatively small. We're talking about a little under $1,000 in contingency, and I would fully support that number moving forward.
I just want to add that this fix right now, just so everyone understands, when you see this come up in capitals potentially next year to replace the whole system, this is a Band-Aid right now because the system is so old. This is to get the system up and running, obviously because it is a cooling shelter, but because it is for the elderly, that the whole system needs to be addressed, and Marshall has been working to find out what the best fix is and whether there are whether there is money available to us to help us put in a new system. But I just want to make everyone aware that this is to get this up and running, but it will come up again.
Can I have a motion?
I'll make the motion to move that the Board of Selectmen approve the following line item appropriate transfers of $7,500 from Public Works Contracted Services 1-311-831-0000 to Senior Center 179-813-100-2202 in the amount of $7,500.
I will second.
Thank you, Candace. Thank you, Jonathan. Any further discussion? All in favor? 6-0, unanimous, passes. Item 22-42, proposed line item transfer.
Thank you, Todd. So this, just to make sure that everybody's clear on this, the full list of the proposed transfers is on page 3 of this item in the packet. There are a number of them, and the purpose of this transfer is to correct overages that may have occurred in any given line item. So it's to reconcile those accounts, make sure that they're balancing out.
This is only for departments that are over budget as a whole, not for any line items within a department. This is only for those departments that, as an overall at this point in time, are over budget. And as I said, we still have invoices coming in departments. So there may be additional amounts that we have to come back, particularly in the electricity line items, that we may have to come back and readdress in these departments.
So, what does unnegotiated settlements mean?
That's the money that has been budgeted for any contract settlements that went unused this year. So as contracts expire, we do not put an anticipated increase in the salary line items. And if at any point during the year those contracts settle and we have to pay retroactive wages and we have to adjust the budget to their new salaries, this is the line item that it would come from.
Thank you.
Given the sheer volume of different transfers that are proposed here, as long as everyone has an understanding that you're looking at this page, I'm happy to come in and make sure that we're all looking at the same document together. The third page of this item in this packet, a motion that simply references this document For example, I move that the Board of Selectmen approve the following line items as presented in the attached document. Line item transfers would be suitable.
Glenn, you'll add this document to the minutes? Yes. Thanks, sir. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Steve. Is there a second?
I'll second. I'll second.
Thank you, Jonathan. Further discussion?
Shouldn't we indicate the amount? 136,000.
Well, you're gonna attach the document to be part of the to be part of the minutes. I mean, you can certainly, I can certainly summarize for you each of the departments if you'd like.
No.
Let's number this document, or label this document somehow, so we can,
Says June 30th, 2022, line item budget transfers, departments over budget.
let's just identify it by the title.
Line item number 2242.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussions? All in favor? 6-0. Passes. Citizens' comments. The Board of Selectmen welcomes public comments. Speakers will be limited to 3 minutes. You may speak once. David?
Yes. In regards to the previous topic that I brought up, I just want the town manager to know, and also the selectmen to know, that since I've been in this town, since 2001, no town manager has ever charged me or sent me an invoice for Freedom of Information requests, including Mr. Geiger, who Mr. Geiger and we didn't agree on a lot of issues. And he was very gracious about it because he said, David, you're entitled to the information. Lori, get it for him. And then he would get rid of me, effectively. So this is why I come before you again. Steve says it's equity. His wife was town clerk for over 20 years. I think she charged me twice. And that was when we were in heavy contention on budgets, and we had like 9 referendums going on, and I was president of the Taxpayers Association. So, and that was in regards to information. The Board of Education never charged me. Gilbert School for information for pay and salary, for names and monies that they made for the entire year, and they gave a copy. That's what the finance director is in charge of. It's easy. It's a push of a button. So me showing up at your office, taking a picture of a document, doesn't use up too much of Terry Page's time. So you say, you know, I asked the town clerk, how many people have paid this $20 for this year alone at the town clerk's office? The answer came back 0, none, from his aide who works there. So, you know, have you had any other $20 paid?
We've had more than $20 paid for
This
FOIA
year?
requests, yes. Out of my office, yes.
For scanners.
For all kinds of requests. It all depends on what's being requested.
Okay. The second item I'd like to say before my time has expired, the timer's over there, so I can't see it. Usually they had a podium or, you know, clock over here so we could see it. Is that the good mayor has said in previous to the referendum that, you know, taxes are not increasing. Well, everyone who got their automobile vehicle taxes has seen their vehicle taxes increase double, if not triple, and the assessment value, based on the NDA book, we all know what that is increasing so much so that it doesn't take into account all of the variables, i.e. tires, mufflers, oil changes, and everything else you do to maintain your used vehicles. So if you go to sell that vehicle, that taken all into account, you're not getting the value that we're getting from the assessor's office, which the NDA book says. I mean, so you have to understand, taxpayers are who you work for. And if taxpayers feel they're getting ripped off, not to say that you're ripping them off, but the bill that they receive, the invoice that they get, it's making people kind of mad. So I just want to let you know that and make you cognizant. I'm sure you already know. But I think it's appropriate that the taxpayers are going to be telling you that they're overtaxed and they've had enough. Thank you.
In New Jersey, there is no car tax. In Connecticut, there is. You know, I would love it if in New Jersey we didn't have to pay car taxes, but we do.
Anne Marie, correct me if I'm wrong, but the values of the cars, I believe, all come from the state of Connecticut.
Yes.
Right, so those are not set locally. We simply are given a list by the state of cars that exist in our town. We are given a list of values, and we have to charge it. That is the one area of the municipal taxes that there really is no influence from the town on. And I do apologize, because I can speak personally. My car value went up, and I'm going to pay a higher tax value on that. So I understand that certainly values are rising, but that is the one area where our assessor's office really is not involved in the equation. So certainly if you have any interest in getting in touch with state representatives to make a greater case at the state level, I'm always open to making connections.
And I believe that that's why the motor vehicle cap was put in place.
Right.
Was to offset a portion of the rise in the values.
John, anything? Selectmen's comments and reports? Does anyone have anything?
Yes, we have Junior Kraus and the Shakes that will be playing this Thursday, but it is a 60% chance of rain, so watch the website and we'll let you know that day if we will have to cancel or not. But it's Connecticut, you never know if it's gonna rain or not.
It's supposed to be very hot too, so bring water if they do have it. Anyone else?
We're gonna mention anything about Mr. Forrester? Okay. Also, there's going to be a ribbon cutting on August 4th at Cirque de Nutrition, which is at 60 Main Street. They serve health drinks if anyone wants to come there, August 4th at 5 p.m.
Jack, anything?
Yeah, and the first, get the date, the first Sunday in August, we're having a historical, or not a historical, a history program at the monument. Let me just make sure I'm dealing with the right time. Oh, come on. Yeah, August 7th, at 2 o'clock at the monument. Virginia Schultz-Charette will be giving a history of some Civil War action, soldiers that came from here and fought in the Civil War. So again, it's an open, free, and the monument will be open that day. And we are still working on the windows. We've been told now that the windows may not get in before September. I've been to one of the suppliers. I've seen them. They look good, but they're not all there, and we're not going to begin until they're all there. So that's still an ongoing project.
All right, as Candace alluded to a little bit ago, this past week we've lost a longtime resident. He was a 30-year member of the police force downstairs. He served with honor. He was a United States Marine, and he was sometimes he was a little gruff here at the town meetings, but he meant well.
But he was always here, too.
He was always here, and the town lost an honorable man, a good man. With that, we'll go to executive session, taking the town manager. Yeah, we don't need Glenn, right?
I'll have to recuse myself.
Okay.
We're staying here or going next?
Sorry, there are multiple items to be discussed in executive session regarding property, so I wouldn't want you to recuse yourself from.
Go and then.
Yeah,
and
recuse
then
yourself
leave.
from specific portions of it.
Okay.
I think would be most suitable.
Okay, and the time is 8:21.
Gives you time to do the minutes.
Yes. Get started on them. Not too much, though. I'll make it quick.
And we'll go to the, is the blue room open?
Yeah.
We'll go to the blue room, so Glenn doesn't have to shut down.
Okay. Thank you.
That's what I'm saying.
Did you go to church yesterday? They announced it at church. At St. Joe's, place, because, Maloney's has his service.
Boy,
You didn't know?
I did not know that.
Yes,
About John?
Yeah.
Hey, Steve, just to
Thought it was-
remind you, I'll be sending a message to Sheila on that Sunday. She's already scheduled to be there,
August 7th.
August 7th. Yeah. She had said a while ago that she would be there.
Yep.
so evident how much our former town clerk gave away. He's locked up in there, I know. I just remember. What?
We're on still, camera, recording.
Oh, thank you. Oh, well.
back.
Not mine.
We're returning from executive session at 9:10. Executive session discussed some property transactions that we'll take no actions on at this time. Steve?
I move we adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Candace. All in favor? 6-0. Have a good night. See you in August. We have seconds, so Glenn shuts that off.
Yep.